You're dead wrong if you think dinosaurs went extinct because of an asteroid. 200 million years ago there was an even more devastating extinction event. It directly killed 76% of Earth's species. And dinosaurs, far from dying out, ended up dominating the planet for 140 million years because of it. At the end of the Triassic period, Earth entered a hellish mode. Volcanoes in the central Atlantic erupted continuously for 600,000 years. What does that even mean? Imagine the entire area of China turning into magma. Carbon dioxide levels soared to 6 times today's. The oceans were completely devastated. Throw a fish in and its bones would be rotten in 3 minutes. But here comes the strangest part. Those massive ferocious archosaurs all died, while dinosaurs, the small and weaklings of that era, survived. Scientists studied for decades to uncover the truth. Dinosaurs had a secret weapon in an organ you'd never expect. Their lungs. In 2020, paleontologists discovered during scans that early dinosaurs had an air sac respiratory system. In low oxygen environments, their respiratory efficiency was 300% higher than their rivals. Other animals were suffocating while dinosaurs were taking deep breaths. This wasn't an extinction, it was a million-year-long breath-holding contest. Whoever could hold their breath would rule the next era. This extinction is called the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event. But before we talk about this extinction, you need to understand how absurd the Triassic was. Earth in that era was completely different from what you know. First, all the landmasses were squeezed together. Yes, literally. One giant supercontinent called Pangaea. It stretched from the North Pole all the way to the South Pole. If you traveled west from China, you could reach America without a boat. Sounds convenient, right? Wrong. The interior of this supercontinent was a death zone. Because it was so vast, moisture from the oceans couldn't reach it. The center of Pangaea was a desert more terrifying than the Sahara. Daytime surface temperatures could soar to 60 degrees Celsius and drop to below freezing at night. No plants, no water, just endless sand dunes and storms. And on this hellish continent, the rulers weren't dinosaurs. They were a group of monsters you'd never expect. Rossuchians. These guys were the true overlords of the Triassic. They looked like crocodiles but were 100 times more ferocious. Some could grow up to 8 meters long. Standing up, they were taller than a small car. Their mouths were filled with serrated teeth. One bite could snap a femur. The most absurd thing was, some Rossuchians walked on 2 legs. Yes, you heard that right. An 8-meter-long crocodile. Walking upright like a T-Rex. Chasing prey. The thought alone is enough to give you nightmares. There was also the Postosuchus, weighing over half a ton. The largest predator on land at the time. Its bite force could easily crush the skull of any animal. So what were the dinosaurs doing? Surviving in the cracks. Most Triassic dinosaurs were only a little over a meter long, about the size of a large chicken. They didn't dare come out during the day, only venturing out at night to scavenge for food, hiding from the pursuit of those giant Rossuchians. But beneath Pangaea, an epic disaster was brewing. Around 201 million years ago, the Earth's magma began to stir. Cracks appeared in the center of Pangaea. At first it was just small earthquakes, the ground shaking occasionally. Animals didn't pay much attention until one day. The gates of hell were opened. The central Atlantic magmatic province began to erupt. This wasn't an ordinary volcanic eruption. It was the Earth's surface tearing apart. Magma surged from fissures stretching thousands of kilometers. The center of Pangaea became an ocean of lava. Scientists calculated the total area of this volcanic eruption to be over 11 million square kilometers. Larger than all of Europe, the total volume of erupted magma was equivalent to 1,500 Mount Everests. And this wasn't a single eruption, it spewed intermittently for 600,000 years. Every few thousand years a wave would hit just as the ecosystem began to recover, only to be shattered again. The first blow from the volcanic eruption was a sky-obscuring ash cloud. The entire sky turned gray-black. Sunlight was completely blocked and the surface temperature plummeted by 10 degrees Celsius. Plants began to die on a massive scale. They need sunlight for photosynthesis. But now even the sun was hitting. Herbivores had nothing to eat and began to starve. Carnivores followed suit. This was just the appetizer. The volcanoes continued to erupt, releasing astonishing amounts of carbon dioxide. The CO2 concentration in the atmosphere from 1 part per million skyrocketed to 60 parts per million. 15 times today's level. The greenhouse effect began. The Earth started to overheat. The global average temperature rose by 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. This doesn't sound like much, but it was enough to kill countless organisms. Even more terrifying, the ocean absorbed vast amounts of carbon dioxide and its pH began to plummet. It went from slightly alkaline to slightly acidic. Can you imagine what happens when you throw a fish into vinegar? Its bones would dissolve. The Triassic Ocean was like a pot of acidic soup. Marine creatures with shells, like ammonites, corals, and shellfish. Their shells are made of calcium carbonate, in acidic seawater. They were like ice cubes dropped into hot water, slowly melting. 96% of corals died. The base of the marine food web collapsed. The large marine reptiles at the top also went extinct. The biggest victims were the ichthyosaurs. These giants that once ruled the oceans, some reaching 20 meters. Larger than today's sperm whales, but they all died. Not a single one survived. But the volcanoes weren't done. They unleashed another major attack. Mercury. Scientists found astonishing levels of mercury in Triassic rock layers, hundreds of times the normal level. All this mercury came from volcanic eruptions. Mercury is a potent toxin. It enters the food chain, accumulating in animals, causing neurological damage and organ failure. Even more terrifying, mercury also contaminated the soil, killing plants. and paralyzing the entire ecosystem. Latest research in 2024 found that even plant spores were contaminated with mercury, leading to widespread DNA mutations. The proportion of malformed spores exceeded 40%. What does this mean? It means that newly born plants were mostly deformed, unable to grow and reproduce normally. The entire late Triassic period Earth became a giant gas chamber. The air was toxic. The water was toxic, the soil was toxic. The food was toxic. 80% of species disappeared in this catastrophe. But in this hellish environment, dinosaurs survived and they thrived. Why? Scientists couldn't figure it out at first. Logically, dinosaurs had no advantage. They were small, few in number, and their distribution was limited. Until 2020, paleontologists used CT scanning technology to analyze the lungs of early dinosaurs, and finally found the answer. Dinosaurs had a unique respiratory system, called an air sac system. This system wasn't just in their lungs, but extended into their bones, forming an efficient oxygen circulation network. Simply put, every time a dinosaur breathed, oxygen passed through its lungs twice. Once during inhalation and once during exhalation. Their oxygen utilization efficiency was 3 times that of other animals. This wasn't a big advantage under normal circumstances, but in the late Triassic, it was a life-saving skill. Volcanic eruptions caused atmospheric oxygen levels to plummet from 21% to 15%. It was like suddenly going from sea level to the Tibetan Plateau. Difficulty breathing, dizziness, and hardship. Other large animals had inefficient respiratory systems. With every breath, they couldn't inhale enough oxygen. Their movements became sluggish, hunting efficiency dropped significantly, and they slowly starved. But dinosaurs, they breathed normally, hunted normally, lived normally. There was another fatal advantage. Dinosaurs were likely warm-blooded. The climate in the late Triassic was extremely unstable. Sometimes global warming, sometimes sudden cooling. Temperature differences could reach 20 degrees Celsius. For example, the harsh environment was terrible. Their body temperature completely depended on the environment. When it got cold, they couldn't move. They needed to bask in the sun to regain their energy. But dinosaurs didn't need to. They could generate their own heat, maintaining a constant body temperature no matter how the external temperature changed. Allow them to stay combat ready. It's like 2 soldiers fighting. One needs a power bank to move, the other has a built-in nuclear battery. The winner is obvious, and scientists have also discovered that early dinosaurs might have had feathers. These primitive feathers weren't for flying, but for insulation. When volcanic ash blocked the sky and temperatures plummeted, this layer of insulation saved their lives. The last crucial factor was luck. Pure luck. At the end of the Triassic period, dinosaurs were mainly distributed in the southern hemisphere, especially in what is now South America and southern Africa. They were farther from the center of the volcanic eruptions, and were relatively less affected. Meanwhile, the harsh environment was terrible. They were mainly distributed in the northern hemisphere, right near the volcanic craters, taking the brunt of the blast. Thus, the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event took less than 1 million years to completely rewrite the list of Earth's rulers. When the volcanoes finally stopped erupting and the sky cleared again, dinosaurs emerged from their shelters to find the entire world was theirs. The harsh environment that had once dominated them was all dead. The large amphibians that had competed with them for food were also dead. Those giant reptiles in the oceans were all wiped out. Dinosaurs began to reproduce and evolve rapidly. In just a few million years, over 100 new species differentiated. Sauropodomorph dinosaurs began to develop into giants, with beasts over 20 meters long everywhere. Theropod dinosaurs evolved various hunting skills, some developing sharp claws, others developing pack hunting strategies. And avian dinosaurs also emerged. This entirely new group later evolved into Stegosaurus, Ankylosaurus, and Triceratops, becoming the protagonists of the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. The golden age of Jurassic dinosaurs officially began. Without this mass extinction, dinosaurs might have remained a group of small animals hiding in the shadows, never to have Tyrannosaurus rex, never to have Allosaurus, never to have Triceratops, and certainly never to have the birds we see today. So ironically, dinosaurs should be thankful for this extinction. Without it, there would have been number 140 million years of glory. But even more ironically, 66 million years ago, another extinction event occurred. An asteroid struck the Earth, and the age of dinosaurs came to an abrupt end. The advantages that had once saved them were useless against the asteroid impact. Their air sacs were useless, their warm-blooded metabolism was useless, and their feathered insulation was also useless. This is the cruelty of evolution. There are no eternal rulers, only eternal change. The dominant species of each era thought they would rule forever, until the next extinction arrived and reset everything. The Triassic-Jurassic extinction event was not just a slaughter but a reshuffling. It tells us that on this planet, adaptation is the only rule for survival. Those who appear strong may not survive. Those who appear weak might be the ultimate winners. So next time you hear about dinosaurs going extinct due to an asteroid, remember to tell others that before that, dinosaurs had ascended to the throne through a much larger extinction. They were not losers. They were survivors, one of the most successful land animals in the history of this planet. And their story began with that volcanic eruption 200 million years ago. Starting from that volcanic eruption 200 million years ago,